Thank you, everybody, for coming back. Go to datingwhileadulting.com to see everything you need to see. Email me at michael@datingwhileadulting.com. So let me just get right into this. And let me start by going back to the last episode, as a matter of fact. And there are two things I want to bring up about that last episode. First of all, I made reference in that last episode to having a segment about people that were getting divorced after decades of marriage. And while it hasn't been decades in this particular example I'm going to bring up, it has been at least one decade, as I read that Carmelo and Lala are divorcing. So going back to last week, talking about I should start a new segment. I guess this starts the segment and talking about people who have been married for long periods of time and now they're getting divorced. And Carmelo and Lala, they're the first. And hopefully this won't be a segment that continues for too long or at all, because I don't root for people to get divorced. So they've been married for 11 years, but they have a 14-year-old son, which speaks to the fact that they've been together for at least 14 years. So despite being married for 11, been together for 14, is still not 20. But shoot, the question is, 11 years isn't enough to figure it out. I mean, I talked in the last episode about how 20, you would think you figure it out sooner. I would think that you could be able to figure it out in 11. But with that said, again, like I said last time, this is coming from the dude who has not been married. So I can only speak so much about that. But there's no purpose in rehashing all of that. I think I said enough on the last episode. I won't go back through that, like I said, which is rehashing. But but this brings me to the second thing, and this is the funny thing. Um, Going back to the Blair Underwood isn't Malik Yoba episode, you know, and I wrote a blog post about it at datingwhileadulting.com, but nobody reads anymore. So I figured I'd bring it up on this episode because it is funny to me. But in the last episode, I brought up the fact that Blair Underwood was divorcing his wife that he'd been married to for 27 years. And then I went into this like long explanation of who Blair Underwood was, and it was complete with this internal debate that I was having about where he fit in the lexicon of Black history, Black icon history, and all that. The problem with that was that I was dis- I was describing and debating Malik Yoba's career and not Blair Underwood's career. So let me be clear on this. Blair Underwood is indeed getting divorced from his wife. He's been married for 27 years and all of that stuff. But Blair Underwood has has never even made a guest appearance on New York Undercover. And so all of the stuff that I was talking about when describing Blair Underwood's career, I was actually, like I said, talking about Malik Yoba, and the two are totally different beings and all of that stuff. So I don't even know what to make about that. And with that said, I'm not going to get into a monologue about Blair Underwood's place in Black entertainment history like I thought I had last year, but I was debating Malik Yoba's place in Black entertainment history. I'm not going to go back down that road with comparisons to Luther Vandross and all of that stuff and how he was ours and all that mess. Forget it. I did it once. I'm not doing it again. And plus, I mean, Blair Underwood's cool. I mean, he was in Posse, and he was in Set It Off, and he was some other stuff and all of that. But it does kind of make me wonder though, just on the side note, like which one of the two had the more impactful career between. But in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And what makes the comparison even more funny, at least to me, is that, like I said, Blair's the one that's been married for 27 years. But what also tripped me out was I didn't even realize that The whole time I recorded the episode, I didn't realize it. In pre-production, pre-recording, I didn't recognize it. And then it was like as I was uploading it, the feed to YouTube, all of a sudden, that's when it just dawned on me. Like nobody told me or anything. I didn't look anything up. I didn't wasn't researching anything. It's just all of a sudden, out of the blue, it dawned on me while I was waiting for it to finish uploading that hold up, I'm not talking about the right person. Yeah, it's like, no, that's Malik Yoba, who is totally different from Blair Underwood. Anyway, I was tripping. I apologize for that. What can I say? And what also makes it funny to at least me and maybe to no one else is when it comes to relationships, while Blair Underwood, like I said, has been married for 27 years, Malik Yoba has also been married, but he's been divorced. But the thing that he's known for as it pertains to like dating and relationships and all of that, and even marriage, is he has declared his love and expressed his love for trans women. And so just and when I say love, it's like I don't mean like love in just the way that we're talking about in like terms of support and like, yo, I support them and their struggles and all of that. He says he loves them. He's attracted to them. Like he likes giving trans women dick. And so look, this isn't me making a judgment about who he's attracted to or anything like that. Hey, I got no problem with it at all. And I'm not even saying it in that way that people will like say it like I support it, but then like act homophobic about it, like on the side. Nah, I really don't have any issue with that mess at all. The only reason why this is funny to me is because you can't get more when it comes to relationships, which this podcast is geared toward. And you're talking about the relationship spectrum that the two are on. You can't get more different from Blair Underwood and his marriage for that long, and Malik Yoba and his marriage ending. And if you Google him, at least when I finally did Google Malik, that's the first thing that came up. So that's the thing that's funny to me. Not that he's dating, he's in love with trans women or anything like that after his marriage. None of that. It just cracks me up that you can't be further apart between these two people with regard to their relationship status, their relationship structure. And as I think about it, even their careers, it's like, yeah, but I mixed them up. Don't know why. Yeah, it's funny. But I figured I'd start off with those two things because they were funny to me. And like I said, nobody reads. So I figured I'd just start off by clearing that up for people that might have been confused, even though in the title I named it that specifically, hoping that people would read the paragraph intro that comes with the podcast to get a clear idea. Because I'm sure that some people didn't read it and didn't really get it. And then as they were listening to it, they were wondering, like, yo, he's not describing Blair Underwood's career in acting. So yeah, that's that. Anyway, so on to what I wanted to talk about today. Now, among men, amongst men, I guess the way you would say it, we have a word that we apply to certain women. That word is undateable. Now, Urban Dictionary defines undateable as someone who is so flawed that they cannot possibly be dated by anyone. That sounds okay. Flawed isn't necessarily the word that I would use though. I think of it more as someone who's carrying too much baggage and not knocking the hustle because everybody has baggage, especially when you look at the demographic of this podcast as people get older. Unfortunately, while we work to like get rid of our baggage, we are also accumulating more baggage. So it's just like a push and pull. It's almost like being in a boat and the boat is taking on water, and you're like, you have a bucket and you're like trying to like use the bucket to get water out of the boat while you're like taking on more water. And that's kind of how baggage is as you get older. It's like you're trying to like get rid of the baggage that's been there the longest, but inevitably, just because it's just how life works, you're accumulating more baggage that you're having to work through. So you're always working through something. So definitely not knocking anybody with baggage. We all have it and all that stuff. It's just that when you have like when when you have the type of baggage that is inevitably going to bleed into your relationship, that's the type of baggage that I'm talking about. And if you allow it, any type of baggage can bleed into your relationship. But sometimes there's baggage that will more likely bleed into your relationship. And guys kind of have a better understanding of what I'm talking about here. At least I'm thinking, because I don't really hear anybody, I don't hear women use that word. I don't hear women talk about use the word baggage. So, I mean, not baggage. I don't hear too many women use the word undateable. It seems to be a more common term used by guys when talking about women than women do when talking about guys. And so, and it usually is because of the baggage. Or honestly, it's because honestly, guys will use it when talking about somebody that they deem to be crazy. So a good example of that is Lisa Nowak. And for people that don't know or remember who Lisa is, Lisa was an astronaut, and she found out that her ex-boyfriend was dating another woman. Now the man started kicking it with Lisa, and they were just kicking it, they had a situationship. Meanwhile, he had a main woman, and he told Lisa about the main woman. Lisa and the dude had an understanding that they were just kicking it. Lisa and the dude had an understanding that Lisa and the dude were just kicking it. Dude had a main woman in Florida. They were in Texas. Lisa seemed to be cool with that. But apparently Lisa wasn't cool with that, because Lisa, in her jealousy and wanting to be the main chick, going back to the whole main chick, side chick thing and all of that stuff, Lisa wanting to be the main chick, she got in her car and proceeded to drive from Texas to Florida. That was a 900-mile drive to confront this woman, and I guess to stake her claim to this woman on this dude. Now, here's where the undateable part comes in. She was so determined to confront this woman that she wore diapers. She wore diapers to avoid taking bathroom breaks. She wanted to drive to $900, only stopping for gas. She didn't want to take any bathroom breaks because she had to get to this woman. Now, when a dude hears this story, a dude is instantly going to think that this woman is undateable, because she's wearing a diaper. She's undateable. So if that's what she'll do, what else would she do? And to be even more clear, like if you meet Lisa at a bar and and she's cool, you had a great time with her, you know, all of that. It's like, and then some kind of way you hear that story, somebody says you like, yo, that's the same chick that wore the diapers to Florida to get to the other chick. Even if you met that woman, and going back to the episode where I talked about the different categories that guys put women in: the marriage, the sex, the friends, and then I don't even want to mess with you. A dude could meet Lisa and be like, yo, she's the one. And then hear that story and be like, that chick has baggage. That chick is undateable. Because that does not sound like the kind of thing that somebody who is dateable would do. And just think, if the dude was upfront with Lisa and told her, and that's the way that she reacted, can you imagine like how she might react to what might be a misunderstanding or something like that? Like if she thinks that you're cheating or something like that, and boy, that would knock her down, like I said, from the marriage category to at least the sex category. She'd definitely be taken off the marriage category. So, and the only reason I say that she'd fall into the sex category and not a category lower than that is because honestly, men believe that the best sex comes from crazy women. And I cannot knock that. If somebody tells you, if a guy tells you that they're with a woman and the woman is just like out there, and a friend will be like, yo, she's dogging you, it's like, why you stay with her? And he said, man, she crazy. And it is just automatically known or assumed that that means that the sex must be off the charts. So unfortunately for Lisa, that's probably the best category that she can be for somebody that knows that story. Now, if enough time passes, maybe she can get to a point where she can like outlive that, and a dude will be like, okay, that was your past, you got help or whatever, and now you're dateable. But man, just hearing that story, that chick is undateable. But most men will say sex was good, so you can tolerate that. You just wouldn't marry her. But what I wonder about all of that is, do women see men as undateable in the same way? And the reason I ask that question is because like I said before, I've never heard women refer to men as being dateable, undateable. So I don't know if they have a different word for it or whatever it is. But if there is a different word for it, or if women do categorize men in that way, I would like to know what it is. Because I guess in theory, if a guy's in the friend zone, if a woman puts a man in the friend zone, I guess that means that he's undateable. But that's kind of different and for different reasons. Yeah, I see that as like for different reasons than the reasons that a man would describe a woman as being undateable. Like I said, if a woman puts a dude in a friend zone, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's crazy. It probably just means that she's not attracted to him, which I wouldn't say makes him undateable. Undateable, when a guy says it, more refers to a personality than anything else. So I just wonder about that. And I wonder if women think about men as being undateable in general. And another reason I asked that question is because on page 6, and for people that don't know, page 6 is like the gossip section of the New York Post. On page 6, there was something about Kanye West and Irina Shayk. They're vacationing together in France recently, and apparently they're a couple. Ever since I saw that, I'm seeing all of these other like things about the two of them exploring their relationship and all of that stuff. So whatever. So for people that don't know who Irina Shayk is, which was me until about a week ago, she is a model, and she is, at least what kind of brought her to my mind as I was reading about who she was she dated Bradley Cooper for a nice little minute, and they have a kid together. Also, she has a net worth listed at $25 million. Plus, she is getting child support from Bradley Cooper. I mean, so I mentioned that for a reason, her net worth and child support and all of that stuff. So I mentioned that all of that for a reason. And so my question is, why in the world would she be dating Kanye West? I think that if any man were considered undateable, it would be Kanye West. And I'm not even saying that necessarily because of his political views or whatever. I mean, and I'm not even necessarily saying that because he's bipolar, even though there are people who could reasonably say that he's undateable because of those two things. But I'm not necessarily saying that, but couldn't fault anybody if they did make that judgment. But when someone is bipolar and they admit to not taking their medication because it messes up their creativity and has a past of acting erratically, one example is saying that slavery was a choice. I'm not even getting into the Trump stuff because, hey, somebody loves Trump, whatever. But slavery is a choice thing. That's a bit extreme. And they're currently going through a divorce. I would think that would put somebody in the category of undateable. So I don't know if women use that word or have an equivalent word, like I said before, but if they do, they need to use whatever term they use for this particular case with this dude. And that brings me to the reason that I brought up her net worth, because you can't say that, because I hear a lot of people out there listening to this and saying, well, he's got money. Okay, he does have money, but like I just read, she has money too. And so just saying that he's rich, as if being rich and dating somebody rich solves all the problems that might plague a person or something like that. And don't you dare say that, well, she's rich, but not rich like him. Honestly, that sounds like some broke people talk. Like with $25 million plus child support from a dude, Bradley Cooper, who's worth $100 million, like she's thinking, I just need more money, so I'll just date a crazy billionaire. That's if we even know that he's really a billionaire, because we don't really know, because he was like fighting with Forbes magazine. He was fight. What was it? He was fighting with Forbes magazine because they said he wasn't a billionaire, even though they said he had like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. They didn't declare him a billionaire, so he got all in his bag, offended, and all of this stuff, and start like fighting with them, and wanted him to declare, wanted them to declare him to be a billionaire, which I think they eventually did. But still, I know that I used to call Reggie narcissistic, but something like that is really narcissistic, which would be another reason that I would think that he would be undateable, is because he's narcissistic. And that is not something that you would need to look far to find out. It's just kind of what he is. And since I bring up Reggie, that leads me to the thing that me and Reggie used to always talk about in previous episodes. Like a guy will show a guy will show a woman and tell her who he is and what he's about in way too many cases. And if the woman really wants to, she can find a way to excuse it and look past all of that stuff. So in Arena's case, yeah, you would have to think that if she's dating this undateable dude, it's because she has to know the stuff about him. Even even if they had a friendship going or something like that, and it just evolved, it's not like you blind to all that Kanye has been doing for the past however many years. So and then after he shows himself to be the person that we all knew that he was, the person that he told her and showed her that he was, then she'll be all broken up and all of that, and and whatever. So so I was just fascinated by that. I was probably more fascinated by it than I should have been, but that's just odd to me, just odd to me. Which actually makes me think of another thing. On a side note, related but unrelated, undateable, whatever. Mano is a rapper, and not to say that he's undateable. I don't really know much about Mano, but what I do know about Mano is that he has a podcast. He also was a rapper back in the day, like I said, and he had the song "Hustle Hard," "High Hater." That was his joint. I used to like that song. But the reason I bring him up is because he has a podcast called Kitchen Talk. And who doesn't have a podcast? Everybody has a podcast. I have a podcast. You're listening to it. So, of course, he has a podcast. But the reason I bring him up and what was interesting and how it relates to this particular topic that I'm on is that on one particular episode, he had Mr. C on the show. And for people that don't know, Mr. C, he was a DJ on Hot 97, the radio station in New York. He's also was instrumental in the success of Biggie Smalls at the time, who evolved into the Notorious B.I.G. because he was going to get sued for being called Biggie Smalls. And so Mr. C was instrumental in finding him and getting him to success. But a lot of people know Mr. C because he has been arrested multiple times for solicitation, and in particular, soliciting sex with from men. Okay, now, hey, it's illegal. Obviously, he got arrested for it. Whatever. But just like when I brought up Malik Yoba's past, and I bring up Mr. C's past specifically to soliciting sex from men, not because of any kind of homophobic thing or anything like that, because I don't really care about that. But I do mention that because on that podcast, that dude, Mr. C, he openly talked about how he's attracted to men and women, which, okay, whatever. And he talked about how he's open about his attraction to men when he meets women. And I guess I would imagine that he wouldn't have to worry about telling men that he's attracted to women. I'm just thinking that men wouldn't care that he's also attracted to women. I don't know how that works, maybe, but I do talk to women who have actually I know a couple of women who have been approached by men, and men have actually told these women that they are attracted to men as well. They're basically bisexual. And that is interesting. Now, those women that I'm referring to, they have not taken the guys up on the offer that have approached them. That's too much for them to deal with. But I see, read, hear about women that have and do date men who also are attracted to other men. Now, I would think that if a guy approaches a woman and he says, I just want you to know I like men on the side too, I would imagine that that would put that dude in the category of undateable, but apparently not to enough women because it seems like when they tell these women this, it's because, hey, they're giving them the option, and there are women who are cool with that. Okay, whatever works. Whatever works. I, on a side note, this reminds me of a story. I was dating a woman, and she told me that she met a dude online, and on their first date, he took her to a male review. And she was like, this is what you're into. And he excused it like, well, no, I'm not saying I'm into it. I just wanted to do something for you to make you comfortable. So he took her to a strip show of guys stripping to make her feel comfortable on their first date. Okay. This leads me to one question though. What the fuck am I doing wrong? I mean, shoot, if the Mr. C's in the world can get women, even after telling them, yo, I just want you to know, I like men too. So you know, you're gonna have to share me with dudes. And I'm sitting here, 50 years old and single. Yeah, what am I doing wrong? Again, no shade to Mr. C. He's getting it in, doing his thing, and at least he's upfront and honest about it. So I'm not gonna knock him for that. And that's the one thing that women always say, yo, I just want to know what time it is. So I'm not gonna knock his hustle for that. At least he is upfront, giving the women the choice to either get with him or not. But as someone who is struggling to find someone to have a decent relationship with, man, it's amazing to me how it seems to be so easy for some people. And it's like in that case and in Kanye's case, it's like, is it just like a matter of like money that apparently I don't have enough of? Or is it like celebrity that I don't have any of? And I figured no, because I hear about similar crazy stories from us broke people as well. But in these cases, one dude is just coming out of a marriage and and is exhibiting strange behaviors and has been doing this for years. And he's with an international supermodel with her own money, while the other is open about his attraction to dick, and they're both doing better than me. Boy, I need to get some money and get it fast. It's like I need to get it quick, fast, in a hurry. Don't worry. Flavor vision ain't blurry. And that brings me to another thing, because for people that don't know, that's a line from Flavor Flav from Public Enemy. And that reminds me of when he had his reality show Flavor of Love. That reality show that was preceded The Bachelor, where they just had a bunch of women out there and they were all like throwing themselves at him to try to like get with him and stuff like that. And out of that, I can't even look at Hoops the same way. And for people that don't know who Hoops is, she was the one who won the first season of Flavor of Love. She is fine. She is beautiful in every way that you would think. That was a good looking woman. Fellas, if you don't know who Hoops is, and that's Hoopz, not S. I strongly encourage you to Google her. Google her. And if you black and don't know who Hoops is, like I'm shocked and amazed. But with that said, if you Google her, it's worth the Googling or whatever. But I can't even look at her without thinking back to that show. And the show was on like 10 years ago, something like that. But I can't even look at her without picturing her kissing Flavor Flav, and that's kissing him with tongue. So I don't know. Flavor Flav, I would think he was undateable too. But if you had seen some of the women that was on the show, and he had 2 seasons on the show, so again, you're doing better for me, doing better than me. And let me just close by saying, ladies, don't you dare tell me that that these women are dealing with these dudes, these undateable dudes, and that shows like how few good dudes there are out here. I'm not hearing that today. That's all I have. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the new listeners. I got a spike in listeners last week, and that makes me happy. I hadn't mentioned the Susu thing in a long time, but 50 friends tell 50 friends, and we'll keep this thing going. I am Michael. I am your host. Reggie's your other host. Say goodbye, Reggie. Reggie doesn't speak anymore. So I'll say goodbye for him, and have a great week. If you're listening to this during the week, or if you're listening to it over the weekend, have a great weekend. Have a whatever it is that you're doing. And on that note, I will say goodbye.